A young black mother flees a home that nearly broke her and drags her little boy into the night, praying they won't be found. A towering hell's angel appears like danger. Then, in a soft, low voice, offers shelter, soup, and the single line that changes everything. "You're safe now." But the man she ran from has a perfect public life, a local reputation, and a secret power that can still ruin her, so safety turns into a fight in plain sight. Rumors, a shaken child who blurts a truth, and a hidden witness begin to pull the town apart, and everyone's masks start to slip. Who will protect them when the law looks the other way? And can a battered heart learn to trust a guardian who wears a leather jacket? Drop a comment below and share which part of the world you're tuning in from today. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe for more. The digital clock's red numbers pierced the darkness. 2:10 a.m. Maya's trembling fingers gently shook Eli's shoulder. "Sweetie," she whispered, her voice barely audible even in the silent room. "We need to go now. Remember what we practiced?" Eli blinked awake, his brown eyes wide with understanding beyond his 8 years. He didn't ask why. He knew. The crashes from downstairs told the story they'd lived too many times before. His small body tensed as he nodded, already reaching for the clothes they'd laid out the night before. "Where's my keys?" Dan's voice boomed from below, followed by the sound of another drawer being yanked open and slammed shut. The wood splintered against the force of his anger. "Maya, get down here right now!" She worked quickly, her hands steady despite her racing heart. The faded blue duffel bag gaped open on the bed as she filled it with only what they couldn't leave behind. Eli's stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hops, worn thin from years of love, one ear nearly detached but still his most treasured possession. The creased photograph of her father, smiling on his fishing boat. The last picture taken before the cancer took him too quickly. Their birth certificates, folded carefully in a manila envelope she'd hidden inside a hollowed-out book. The cash she'd been hiding in old winter boots, tucked away $20 at a time whenever Dan didn't check the grocery receipts. And finally, the silver watch Dan had given her on their first anniversary, back when his smile still reached his eyes, and his touch was gentle. Something shattered downstairs, probably the crystal vase her mother had given them as a wedding present. The crash was followed by a string of curses that made Maya wince. "I swear to God, Maya, if you've hidden them again—" Dan's voice grew louder, and she could hear the heavy thud of his footsteps pacing the kitchen floor below. Eli's small hand found hers in the dark. He was already dressed, shoes on the wrong feet but tied with double knots just like she'd taught him. Maya squeezed his fingers, proud of how quietly brave he was being. She knelt down and quickly switched his shoes to the right feet, pressing a silent kiss to his forehead. Her mental checklist scrolled through her mind like a lifeline she clung to. The women's shelter in Millbrook was 2 towns over, far enough that Dan's connections as a local business owner wouldn't matter. People there wouldn't know his charming public face or be swayed by his community standing. She had Sarah's number memorized. Her old college roommate would wire money if they needed it, no questions asked. The car had a full tank of gas from yesterday's errands, and the emergency bag of snacks and water bottles was already hidden in the trunk. They crept down the back stairs, each creak making Maya's heart jump. She held Eli close, guiding him to step exactly where she did on each stair. Dan's voice carried from the kitchen, slurring threats into his phone. The smell of whiskey hung in the air, sharp and familiar. "Tell that brother of hers if he's hiding her, I'll make sure he regrets it. I know people at the bank who can make things difficult for him." The back door opened silently. She'd oiled the hinges last week, always planning while pretending to clean. The cool night air hit their faces as they hurried across the dewy grass, ducking low past windows to the car parked around the corner. Maya had moved it there after dinner, claiming she'd seen a scratch she wanted to check in better light tomorrow. Highway lights streaked past as Maya drove, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. The darkness of the road ahead felt both terrifying and like freedom. Eli dozed in the back seat, Mr. Hops clutched to his chest, his face finally peaceful in sleep. The gas gauge dipped below quarter tank, and Maya pulled into a rest stop just before 3 in the morning. Only 2 other cars shared the vast parking lot, their occupants invisible behind darkened windows. The gas pump's numbers clicked steadily upward as she filled the tank. Maya kept her head down, scanning the shadows, her hair falling forward to shield her face from security cameras. That's when she heard it, the distinctive rumble of a motorcycle approaching through the night, growing louder with each passing second, its headlight sweeping across the empty parking lot. The motorcycle's rumble grew louder, and Maya instinctively stepped closer to the car where Eli slept. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she positioned herself between the approaching sound and her son. A massive black Harley pulled up to the pump across from her, its chrome gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights of the gas station. Road dust clung to its sides, evidence of many miles traveled. The rider cut the engine, and in the sudden quiet, Maya could hear her own rapid breathing mingling with the soft hiss of the gas pumps. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders wrapped in worn leather that creaked slightly as he dismounted. Tattoos snaked up his neck, disappearing into a graying beard that framed a weathered face. A patch on his vest read VP in bold yellow letters against black fabric. His hands, Maya noticed, were large but deliberate in their movements. But when he spoke, his voice was surprisingly gentle, like gravel wrapped in velvet. "Evening, ma'am," he said, keeping his distance, eyes watching her carefully but not invasively. "Everything all right with you folks tonight?" Maya nodded stiffly, one hand on her car door, the other clutching her keys with her finger poised over the panic button. The night air felt suddenly colder on her skin. "Name's Marcus Hale. Most folks call me Patch." He reached slowly into his saddlebag, telegraphing each movement as if aware of her unease, and pulled out an unopened water bottle and a folded fleece blanket still in its packaging. "Noticed the little one sleeping back there. Night's getting cold. Temperature's supposed to drop below 40. Eli stirred in the back seat, rubbing his eyes with small fists. His dinosaur pajama top had ridden up, exposing his belly to the chill. "Mom?" His voice was thick with interrupted sleep. "It's okay, sweetie," Maya said quickly, trying to inject reassurance she didn't feel into her voice. "Just getting gas. Go back to sleep." Patch knelt down to Eli's eye level, still maintaining a respectful distance that Maya registered gratefully. His movements were careful, non-threatening. "Hey there, buddy. That's quite a rabbit you've got. Been on many adventures together?" Eli hugged Mr. Hops closer to his chest, the stuffed animal's once white fur now gray with love and wear. One ear flopped forward as Eli regarded the stranger, but he managed a small smile. "His name's Mr. Hops. He helps me be brave when it's dark." "Fine name for a rabbit," Patch said with a solemn nod, as if discussing something important with an equal. He glanced up at Maya, his eyes kind but knowing. "Listen, I know Sister Ann over at St. Mary's Shelter on Westbrook Avenue. Good people there, very discreet. Private rooms for families. They've got security too. I can make a call, get you folks set up proper for the night. Maybe longer if needed." Maya hesitated, shifting her weight from one foot to another. The $20 bill in her pocket suddenly felt impossibly small. "I don't have much to—" "No money needed," Patch interrupted gently, raising a calloused palm. "Been doing this a while. Part of what we do in my chapter, helping folks get where they need to go safely. No questions asked? No strings attached? The photograph she'd been clutching in her jacket pocket slipped slightly, catching Patch's eye as the edge peeked out. It was dog-eared and creased from being held too tightly, too often. "That your family?" he asked softly, not reaching for it. "My father," Maya said, surprised by the tears that suddenly thickened her voice. She swallowed hard against the tightness in her throat. "He was a fisherman, up in Maine. Good man? The best." Maya touched the photo's edge. "He taught me to trust my instincts." Patch nodded thoughtfully, giving her words the space they deserved. "Look, I've got my truck parked around back of the station. Can follow you there in your own car, or you can ride with me if that feels safer. Your choice entirely. But you shouldn't be out here alone at this hour, not with temperatures dropping and the little one tired." Maya studied his face, the kind eyes that seemed to understand too much without demanding explanations, the careful way he kept his hands visible, the respectful distance he maintained. The crow's feet at the corners of his eyes spoke of laughter and worry in equal measure. "You know Sister Anne personally? Not just know of her?" 20 years now. Was one of the first to help her set up the place. Want me to call her? Put your mind at ease? She's usually up late doing paperwork." Eli yawned loudly from the back seat, the sound reminding Maya of just how exhausted they both were. Mr. Hops drooped in his loosening grip. She felt the weight of the night pressing down, the miles behind them and the uncertainty ahead. She needed help, and something in Patch's manner spoke of genuine concern without expectation. "Okay," she said finally, the decision settling her nerves rather than increasing them. "Could you call her? Right now?" "Right now," Patch said, pulling out his phone with deliberate slowness. As he dialed, he added in a whisper meant just for her, "You're safe now. Both of you. Whatever you're running from, it stops here." The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon when Patch's truck pulled up to a 3-story brick townhouse. Maya blinked away exhaustion, gently shaking Eli awake. The neighborhood looked ordinary. Trimmed hedges, morning newspaper deliveries, a cat lounging on a nearby porch, and sprinklers making gentle arcs across perfectly maintained lawns. It could have been any suburban street in America. "Don't let the regular look fool you," Patch said quietly, his calloused hands still resting on the steering wheel. "Place has better security than most banks. Cameras in the trees, reinforced windows, direct line to police. Women here need it." A woman with coffee-colored skin and close-cropped hair opened the heavy front door before they reached it. She stood with her shoulders squared, clipboard in hand, her eyes quickly assessing them. "I'm Tasha," she said, ushering them inside with an efficient wave. "Let's get you settled. You must be exhausted." The interior was clean and well lit, with warm yellow walls and sturdy furniture that spoke of functionality rather than fashion. A security monitor tucked discreetly in the corner displayed feeds from multiple cameras showing every angle of the property. 3 locks clicked behind them: deadbolt, chain, and an electronic keypad that Tasha punched a code into without looking. "Kitchen's through there," Tasha explained, pointing down a hallway where the scent of coffee and pancakes wafted towards them. "Shared bathroom on each floor. You'll have your own room, locked from the inside. Only you have the key. House rules are strict but simple. Sign in and out, no phones allowed, no sharing location with anyone, not even people you trust." Maya's hand tightened around her cell phone, her lifeline to the world. "No phones?" The words came out smaller than she intended. "For everyone's safety," Tasha said gently, her professional demeanor softening slightly. "If one phone gets tracked, everyone here becomes vulnerable. We'll store it securely in our safe. There's a landline for emergency calls and supervised computer time for necessary communications." Eli pressed against Maya's side as they followed Tasha upstairs, his small fingers clutching the hem of her sweater like he used to do as a toddler. The stairs creaked under their feet, each sound amplified in the morning quiet. 2 women passed them in the hallway, one with fading bruises around her wrist, another carrying a sleeping toddler. They offered small nods of acknowledgement, no introductions. Their eyes held a familiar wariness that made Maya's throat tight. They understood without words what brought her here. Their room was small but clean, with twin beds covered in faded floral quilts and a window overlooking a fenced backyard where a play structure sat under an old oak tree. A nightlight, shaped like a star, was plugged into the wall socket. "Sheets are fresh," Tasha said, setting the clipboard on a small desk. "Bathroom's next door. Take your time settling in, but I'll need those intake forms completed before lunch. The more we know, the better we can protect you." Maya sat heavily on one bed, while Eli cautiously explored the room, running his fingers along the windowsill, peeking into the small closet. She began emptying their duffel, methodically sorting their meager belongings. 3 shirts for Eli, his favorite dinosaur pajamas, the book they'd been reading together, her 2 changes of clothes. Her hands froze when she reached the bottom. The silver watch was gone. The watch Dan had given her on their first anniversary, before everything changed, before the compliments turned to criticism. She remembered his rage last night, him storming through the house, slamming drawers. He must have taken it, one final act of control. A knock at the door made them both jump, Eli darting back to Maya's side. "Breakfast!" called a cheerful voice that didn't match the institutional setting. A plump woman with silver hair pulled into a loose bun entered, carrying a tray loaded with golden pancakes, syrup, and 2 glasses of orange juice. "I'm June. Everyone calls me Mama June. I run the diner down the street, and these are my special recipe. Brown butter and a hint of vanilla, guaranteed to make the worst day a little brighter." The smell of warm butter and syrup filled the room, chasing away the sterile emptiness. Eli's eyes lit up, the first genuine spark of interest he'd shown since they left home. "Thank you," Maya whispered, suddenly overwhelmed by this simple kindness from a stranger. Her voice caught on the words, tears threatening. "Eat up, honey," Mama June said softly, setting the tray on the small table by the window. "Then get some rest. Everything else can wait. First day's always the hardest, but you're not alone anymore." Tasha returned with clipboard and forms, pages of them. Maya's eyes blurred, looking at the questions that reduced her life to checkboxes. Emergency contacts, prior incidents, current medical conditions, history of violence. The enormity of their situation pressed down on her, each question a reminder of choices made and paths now closed to them. "One thing at a time," Tasha advised, seeing Maya's expression. Her professional tone gentled. "Just focus on today. You're safe here. Tomorrow we'll worry about tomorrow." Maya nodded, watching Eli devour his pancakes, syrup dripping down his chin. She touched the empty spot on her wrist where the watch had been, mourning not the object itself, but the hope it had once represented, the future she'd imagined when Dan had fastened it around her wrist with a kiss. That dream was gone now, like the watch. But maybe, in this ordinary-looking house with its extraordinary people and triple-locked doors, they could begin to build something new. The morning light streamed through the window, warming the room and casting long shadows across the floor. Down the hall she could hear other women talking quietly, the clink of coffee cups, a child's muffled laughter, the small sounds of life continuing despite everything. Maya picked up the pen and began filling out the forms, each question a small step toward whatever came next, each answer an act of courage she didn't know she possessed. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the shelter's windows as Maya sat across from Tasha in the small office. Papers covered the desk between them: legal forms, police reports, emergency contacts. The fluorescent light above flickered occasionally, casting a harsh glow over the mountain of bureaucracy that stood between Maya and safety. "I need to be honest with you about the challenges," Tasha said, her dark eyes serious beneath her furrowed brow. "Getting a restraining order takes time, usually days, sometimes weeks. And with Dan's connections in town..." She tapped her pen against the folder, her silver bracelets jingling softly with the movement. Maya's stomach tightened into a familiar knot. She tugged at a loose thread on her sleeve, feeling the panic rise. He knows everyone at the police station. They go to his hardware store, their kids play together. Last Christmas, he even hosted a barbecue for the department. The memory of Dan working the grill, all charm and jokes while she served drinks with a carefully hidden bruise on her wrist, made her throat close up. "Exactly." Tasha leaned forward, her chair creaking under the shift. "That's why documentation is crucial. Every incident, every threat. We write it all down. Every text message, every voicemail. Did he ever leave marks? Do you have photos?" Her voice was gentle but firm, like a doctor asking about painful symptoms. "Some," Maya whispered. "On my phone." "Good, that helps. But the shelter can only offer temporary protection. We need to think about long-term safety plans." Tasha slid another form across the desk, this one about housing options. Maya nodded, twisting her hands in her lap until her knuckles turned white. Her eyes drifted to the phone on Tasha's desk. The black plastic seemed to grow larger in her vision. She'd been avoiding this moment all day, but... Could I make a call?" Her voice sounded small, even to her own ears. Tasha pushed the phone toward her, a small smile softening her professional demeanor. "Take your time. No rush." She stood up, straightening papers. "I'll give you some privacy." Maya's fingers shook as she dialed her mother's number. Ruth hadn't spoken to her since the wedding 8 years ago, when she'd warned Maya about Dan's controlling behavior. "He's holding your hand too tight," she'd said. "That's not love, that's possession." The phone rang once, twice. Maya slammed it down, her heart hammering against her ribs. Tasha returned, setting a cup of tea beside Maya. "It's okay," she said quietly, the steam from the mug curling between them. "Try again when you're ready. Reaching out is the hardest part." 10 minutes later, Maya tried again, clutching the warm mug for courage. This time she got through 2 rings before hanging up, her heart pounding like a trapped bird beneath her ribs. "You'll get there," Tasha reassured her, squeezing her shoulder. "Baby steps." The afternoon drifted into evening. Eli played quietly in their room with some donated books, while Maya helped in the communal kitchen. The routine of chopping vegetables and setting tables felt almost normal. The rhythmic thud of the knife against the cutting board soothed her frayed nerves, and the familiar motions of domestic work grounded her in the present moment. "You make those carrots look easy," commented a woman with a faded purple bruise around her eye. "I always butcher them." Maya managed a small smile. "I used to host all of Dan's business dinners," she said, surprised at how steady her voice was. "Lots of practice." As dusk settled, painting the kitchen windows with streaks of gold and amber, a familiar rumble approached the shelter. Several women tensed, their bodies instinctively curling inward at the sound of a motorcycle engine. Patch appeared at the back door carrying 2 large containers of soup, his massive frame filling the doorway. His leather vest creaked as he carefully maneuvered through the kitchen. "Mama June's special," he explained, setting them gently on the counter. "Chicken noodle and vegetable beef, made fresh this afternoon." The rich aroma filled the kitchen, chasing away the institutional smell of disinfectant. Maya noticed how the other women, initially tense at seeing a man in leather, relaxed when Patch kept his distance and spoke softly, his deep voice barely above a whisper. He moved with a deliberate slowness, as if aware his size might be intimidating. "Mind if we talk?" he asked Maya, gesturing to the back porch. His eyes, surprisingly kind beneath his heavy brow, met hers briefly before looking away. Outside, the evening air held the lingering warmth of the day. Patch leaned against the railing, his weight causing the weathered wood to creak. Crickets chirped in the bushes lining the property, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. "My chapter's taking shifts watching the gate," he said, pointing toward the road where another motorcycle was parked. "We've done this before, keeping people safe when the system's slow to help. Nothing obvious, just keeping an eye out." "Why?" Maya asked, wrapping her arms around herself against the cooling air. "Why help us? You don't even know me." Patch was quiet for a moment, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the sun was sinking behind the trees. "Used to be a medic, over at the VA hospital near Millbrook." He mentioned it casually, but Maya's head snapped up. That was her mother's town. "Saw too many people trapped in bad situations, not just combat vets. Their families, too." He rubbed a hand over his beard. "Sometimes the official channels work too slow. Sometimes you need unofficial guardians, people who understand what it's like when systems fail." Maya watched the sunset paint the sky pink and orange, the colors bleeding into each other like watercolors on wet paper. A flock of birds passed overhead, their V formation perfect against the darkening blue. "I should call my mother again," she said finally, her voice stronger than before. "She lives near that VA hospital. She warned me about Dan. I didn't listen. I was so sure I knew better." "First step's the hardest," Patch said, straightening up. "But you're not alone anymore. That counts for something." He nodded toward the house. "Soup's getting cold." Inside, the shelter settled into its evening routine. Women gathered in the common room, some watching TV, others helping kids with homework. Laughter occasionally broke through the quiet murmur of conversation, fragile but real. The soup was served in mismatched bowls, its warmth spreading through Maya's chest like hope, the first real food she'd tasted since leaving. Maya watched Eli spooning up noodles, talking animatedly with another child about their shared love of rabbits. His cheeks had a hint of color she hadn't seen in months. "And they wiggle their noses like this," he demonstrated, scrunching his face up until the other child giggled. For the first time since leaving, she felt the tight knot in her chest begin to loosen, unraveling thread by precious thread. They weren't safe yet, but they weren't alone either. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough for tonight. Through the diner's front window, early morning sunlight made the chrome fixtures gleam. Maya smoothed her borrowed blouse and gripped the referral letter, watching the breakfast crowd through the glass. The smell of coffee and bacon drifted out each time someone opened the door. Her hand trembled on the handle. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. Inside, the diner hummed with city energy, so different from her small town. Conversations in multiple languages blended with the clink of plates and the hiss of the espresso machine. A waitress with bright purple hair zipped past with loaded plates balanced on both arms. "You must be Maya." The voice belonged to a tall woman with silver hair twisted into a neat bun. Mama June's smile was warm, but her eyes were sharp, taking everything in. "Let's talk in my office." The office turned out to be a corner booth with paperwork spread across it. Maya slid in, clutching her old resume. I was a school librarian," she began, her voice wavering, "for 12 years. But then I got married and She trailed off, unsure how to explain the gap. June waved away the resume. Honey, I know your situation. What I need to know is, can you learn menu items, handle morning rushes, keep your cool when customers get cranky? Maya thought of all the times she'd managed 30 kindergartners during story time. Yes, I can. Good. We'll start you on morning shifts, 6 to 2. Your boy can have breakfast here before school, lunch too if he needs it. June's expression softened. And I hear you're good with kids' programs? Maya's heart lifted slightly. I used to run reading circles, theme days, craft projects. Perfect. We get lots of families on Saturday mornings. Maybe we could set up something in that corner booth? June gestured to a cozy spot by the window. For the first time in days, Maya felt a spark of her old self. She could picture it. Children gathered around, stories bringing magic to their morning. A small way to rebuild, to be useful again. The kitchen tour came next. The purple-haired waitress, Zoe, showed her where everything was kept. Maya tried to absorb it all. Coffee station procedures, table numbers, computer systems. But in the dish room, alone for a moment, it overwhelmed her. The enormity of everything hit at once. Leaving home, starting over, being responsible for Eli's safety. Her hands shook as she stacked plates, and one slipped, clattering loudly in the sink. Easy there. Patch's quiet voice came from the doorway. He moved carefully into the room, keeping his distance but offering steady presence. First day's always rough. Maya wiped her eyes quickly. I didn't know you came here. June's brother rides with us. Chapter helps with maintenance sometimes. He grabbed a towel, started drying dishes beside her. You're doing good, you know. Takes courage to start over. They worked in companionable silence for a few minutes. The simple rhythm of wash, dry, stack helped Maya find her center again. Thank you, she said finally, for being here, for making it feel less scary, Patch suggested. When she nodded, he continued. That's what community's for. Real community, not the fake kind that protects men like Dan. Maya straightened her shoulders, picked up another plate. She could do this. One dish at a time, 1 hour at a time. She could rebuild their lives. Out front, she heard children laughing. Saturday morning reading circles would be a start. A small piece of her old life adapted to this new one. Not everything was lost. Some things could be carried forward, transformed. The morning rush was beginning. Maya tied on her borrowed apron, tucked a notepad in the pocket, and followed Zoe out to learn table arrangements. The diner hummed with life around her, and for the first time, she felt like part of its rhythm. Maya's fingers hovered over the shelter's phone. 2 days of working at the diner had given her something she desperately needed, a routine. The predictable rhythm of taking orders, refilling coffee cups, and wiping down tables had steadied her racing thoughts. But now, staring at the familiar numbers, her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. She dialed before she could change her mind, the plastic receiver slick against her palm. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. Hello? Her mother's voice, still soft and hesitant after all these years, made Maya's throat tight with a tangle of emotions she couldn't name. Mom. The word came out barely above a whisper. It's Maya. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words and years of complicated history. Then Ruth's breath caught audibly, a small, hopeful gasp. Oh, thank God. Are you safe? Yes, we're safe. Maya leaned against the wall, closing her eyes as memories flooded back unbidden, washing over her like a cold tide. She was 16 again, crying in their old kitchen after Bobby Jensen pushed her at school, leaving bruises on her arms. Ruth had dried her tears with a dish towel, but whispered, "Sometimes it's better to walk away, sweetheart. Don't make waves. Nice girls find another path." The same words echoed when Dan first showed his temper, throwing a plate against the wall during an argument about dinner being late. Ruth had helped clean up the shattered pieces, suggesting maybe Maya had provoked him by not having things ready on time. "Men get angry," she'd said, sweeping ceramic fragments into a dustpan. "It's how we handle it that matters. A wise woman knows when to bend." "I should have done more." Ruth's voice broke through the memories, cracking with emotion. "I taught you to be quiet, to endure. I was wrong, Maya. So wrong." Maya pressed her palm flat against the cool wall, anchoring herself in the present. "I need to see you, but not at your house. Not where Dan might look for her, where neighbors might report back." "There's a church hall," Ruth suggested quickly, eagerness brightening her tone. "On Maple Street. It's public, safe, people around all the time." They arranged to meet the next afternoon. When Maya hung up, her hands were shaking like autumn leaves in a windstorm. The following day, Patch's truck rumbled to a stop outside the red brick church with its modest steeple pointing toward a cloudy sky. The building looked solid, reassuring, a place of refuge, not judgment. "Want me to come in?" he asked, his gruff voice gentler than usual. The concern in his eyes made something warm unfurl in Maya's chest. Maya shook her head, gathering her courage. "We need to do this alone. But thank you." She squeezed Eli's small hand in hers. "I'll be right here," Patch promised, settling back with a folded newspaper. "Take all the time you need. We're not in any rush." Inside, the hall smelled of coffee and old hymnals, with a hint of lemon polish. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns across the worn wooden floor. Ruth sat at a folding table, wearing the same pearl necklace she'd had for 20 years, her fingers nervously twisting a tissue. She stood when she saw them, hands fluttering uncertainly like startled birds. "Grandma?" Eli asked, peering from behind Maya's legs, his voice small but curious. Ruth's eyes filled with tears, magnifying the blue irises Maya had inherited. "You've grown so much. Last time I saw you, you were just a tiny thing." Maya guided Eli to a corner with some toys, well-loved wooden blocks and picture books, then faced her mother across decades of misunderstanding. The silence stretched taut between them like an invisible cord. "I'm sorry," Ruth burst out, words tumbling forth as if a dam had broken. "I was raised to believe that keeping peace was a woman's job, her highest calling. My mother taught me that, and I taught you, and it was wrong. So wrong. I see that now." Maya sank into a metal chair, its legs scraping against the floor. "You saw what he was doing, all those years." "Yes," Ruth's voice cracked, her hands trembling around her tissue. "I saw the bruises you tried to hide under long sleeves in summer. I saw how he controlled everything, your friends, your money, even what you wore. But I was scared. Scared of making it worse, scared of losing you completely if I pushed too hard. I needed you to fight for me." Maya's voice was steady, despite the ache in her chest. "I know." Ruth reached across the table, stopping short of touching Maya's hand, respecting boundaries she'd failed to defend before. "Let me fight for you now. I have savings. Not much, but enough. We can get you a good lawyer, and I can watch Eli on weekends when you're working. Whatever you need." Maya studied her mother's face, the new lines around her eyes, the trembling chin, the silver threading through once auburn hair. She saw regret there, and hope, and a strength that perhaps had been growing silently all these years. "You'll have to be strong this time," Maya said, quietly. "Dan might try to contact you. He might charm or threaten, He's good at both. I'm ready. Ruth straightened her shoulders like a soldier preparing for battle. I volunteer here at the church 3 days a week now. Pastor Williams knows everything. He'll help keep you both safe. We have people who can be with me if Dan shows up. As they talked logistics, where to meet, how to communicate safely, Ruth glanced out the window at Patch's truck. Her eyes widened slightly, recognition flickering across her face. That patch on his jacket, she said, nodding towards the window. I remember those colors. Years ago, at the VA hospital where I volunteered after your father died, there was a veteran named Jack who wore the same one. Such a kind man despite how rough he looked. Maya felt a flutter of curiosity about Patch's connection to this other world, these other lives. But before she could ask, Eli bounded over with a drawing he'd made, crayon-stained fingers proudly offering his creation. Look, Grandma, it's all of us, at the park with the ducks. His voice carried the pure enthusiasm only children can manage in difficult times. Ruth held the paper carefully, as if it were precious gold rather than wrinkled paper. In wobbly crayon lines, 3 figures stood together beside scribbled blue water. Maya with long brown hair, Eli with a big smile, and Ruth with her pearl necklace drawn as a string of circles. It's beautiful, Ruth whispered, one tear escaping to trail down her cheek. She looked up at Maya, eyes shining with a mixture of regret and determination. Can we start over? Please? I want to be the mother you deserved all along. Maya thought of all the times she'd needed her mother's strength and found only silence, all the moments Ruth had chosen comfort over confrontation. But she also remembered bedtime stories read in different voices, warm cookies on rainy afternoons, gentle hands braiding her hair before school. The love had always been there, even when the courage faltered. Perhaps they could build something new from the ashes of the past, something stronger and more honest. We can try, she said softly, allowing hope to flicker. One day at a time. The bell above the diner door chimed as families trickled in for the evening's first reading circle. Maya arranged chairs in a cozy corner, her hand smoothing the worn copy of Stuart Little she'd borrowed from the shelter's small library. Can I help? Eli bounced on his toes, already changed into his favorite blue sweater. Sure, honey. Let's make it feel welcoming. Maya guided him in creating a semicircle, the chairs angled so everyone could see the pictures. 2 children from the neighborhood arrived with their mother, Sarah and Tommy, aged 7 and 9. They shuffled shyly at first, but Eli's enthusiasm quickly drew them in. My mom's the best at reading stories, he declared proudly. She does all the voices. Mama June bustled over with a plate of chocolate, chip cookies, still warm from the oven. Can't have story time without treats, she winked, setting them on a nearby table. The smell of vanilla and chocolate mixed with the diner's usual aroma of coffee and grilled cheese. Maya took a deep breath, opened the book, and began to read. Her voice trembled slightly at first, but as she fell into the familiar rhythm of the words, confidence returned. This was what she loved, sharing stories, watching young faces light up with wonder. In the morning, when the family awoke, they found Stuart wrapped in his handkerchief on his bed, tired but happy. Maya read, holding up the book so the children could see the illustrations. Sarah giggled at Stuart's adventures, while Tommy leaned forward, completely absorbed. Eli beamed with pride every time someone reacted to the story, as if his mother's skill was a personal achievement. From behind the counter, June snapped photos with her phone, capturing the magic of the moment. The evening light streamed through the diner windows, casting a warm glow over the small group. At a corner table, a woman with a laptop looked up from her coffee, her attention caught by the animated voices. Maya noticed her watching with interest, scribbling occasional notes in a small notebook. After the story ended and the children dispersed with promises to return next week, the woman approached Maya. She had kind eyes and a gentle smile. "I'm Claire Matthews, a freelance journalist," she introduced herself. "I write human interest pieces for the local paper and online platforms. Would you be interested in letting me do a story about your reading circle? It's exactly the kind of community-building piece people love to read about." Maya's stomach tightened. Publicity could help grow the circle, maybe even lead to donations for books, but exposure felt dangerous. I'd need to think about it," Maya said carefully. "Of course," Claire nodded. "It would be very simple, just focusing on the reading program, the community aspect. You could review the piece before publication." Patch, who had been quietly nursing a coffee at the counter, moved closer. His presence was reassuring, solid. "Be careful who tells your story," he said in his low, steady voice. "Make sure you have control over what gets shared." Claire seemed to understand the undercurrent of concern. "I completely respect that. We could keep it focused solely on the reading circle. No personal details unless you're comfortable sharing them. Maybe just your first name and the basics about the program?" Maya watched Eli helping June clear away cookie crumbs, his face relaxed and happy. Perhaps sharing this small piece of their new life could help others while keeping their core story protected. "I'd like to help other children discover books," Maya said slowly, "but I need to be sure we stay safe." "Absolutely," Claire agreed. "Why don't I come back next week? You can see how the circle develops, and we can talk more about what you're comfortable sharing." As Claire left, Mama June approached with a fresh cup of tea for Maya. "You're doing good work here," she said softly. "However much or little you choose to share." Maya wrapped her hands around the warm mug, watching Eli demonstrate his reading skills to an admiring Tommy. For the first time in years, she felt like herself again. Not just Dan's wife or Eli's mother, but Maya, the librarian, the storyteller, the woman who could create magic with words. Maya wiped down tables during her morning shift at the diner, finding comfort in the simple rhythm of work. 3 days had settled into a pattern. Wake up, get Eli ready, walk to work, then spend afternoons dealing with paperwork and planning the reading circle. "Order up," June called from the kitchen. The familiar clatter of plates and murmur of customers felt almost normal now. After her shift, Maya met Tasha at the shelter. Papers spread across the table between them as Eli played with blocks nearby. "Document everything," Tasha emphasized, sliding a small notebook across the table. "Times, dates, locations, even things that seem small. Write down every phone call, every time you see his car, every concerning comment from Eli about what happened before." Maya's hand trembled as she took the notebook. "What about school? He's supposed to start next week." "I've already talked to the principal," Tasha said. "They'll implement a safety plan. Only you or approved shelter staff can pick him up. They'll keep him inside if Dan shows up." Eli looked up at the mention of his father's name, his fingers tightening around the blocks. Maya's heart ached. "Hey, buddy," came a familiar, gravelly voice. Patch appeared in the doorway, carrying a small paper bag. "Got something for you." Eli's face brightened as Patch pulled out a slightly worn bicycle helmet. "Found this at the swap meet. Thought we could fix it up together." For the next hour, Maya watched as Patch patiently showed Eli how to adjust the straps and check for damage. His big hands were surprisingly gentle as he demonstrated proper fit. "Now, checking tire pressure. That's important too," Patch said, leading Eli to where his small bike was propped against the wall. "See this gauge? Let me show you how it works." Eli absorbed every word, asking questions and beaming when Patch praised his quick learning. Maya noticed how the older man never talked down to her son, treating him with the same respect he showed adults. During a break in the lesson, Patch pulled Maya aside. "Remember that business partner Dan had a falling out with? Mike Reeves?" Maya nodded. "About 2 years ago, Dan was furious for weeks." "I knew him back in my VA days," Patch said carefully. "Haven't talked in a while, but I'll see if he still talks. Might remember things worth knowing." The way he said it made Maya wonder what kind of things Mike might have witnessed. Before she could ask more, Tasha called her back to finish the paperwork. "These restraining order forms need to be perfect," Tasha explained. "No room for errors. Dan will look for any weakness." Maya filled out page after page, her hand cramping. Birth dates, addresses, incident descriptions that made her throat tight. Through it all, she could hear Eli's laugh as Patch told him stories about being a medic. "Had this buddy who got his foot stuck in a fence," Patch was saying. "Reminded me why we always packed wire cutters in our kits." By Friday night, Maya felt both exhausted and oddly hopeful. The routine was small, but it was theirs. She watched Eli organize his school supplies, notebooks, pencils, the helmet now decorated with racing stripes Patch had helped him add. "You're doing great," Tasha said, gathering the completed forms. "One step at a time. That's how we build a new life." Maya nodded, thinking of the reading circle plans for tomorrow morning, the growing stack of incident notes, the way Eli seemed more relaxed each day. Small steps, but forward ones. The shelter kitchen smelled like spaghetti as other residents prepared dinner. Through the window, she could see Patch's truck parked at his usual spot near the gate, a quiet guardian as night fell. Claire's article appeared on the local news website early Monday morning. Maya first saw it during her breakfast shift at the diner when June called her over to look at the laptop screen. "Reading Circle brings hope. Local mom creates safe space for children," June read aloud, beaming. The photo showed Maya reading to a small group of kids, Eli front and center with his face lit up in wonder. Maya's hands shook as she read. Claire had kept her promise. No mention of the shelter, no hint of Dan or their situation. Instead, the article focused on the warmth of Saturday morning reading sessions, describing how Maya used different voices for characters and helped kids sound out difficult words. "You've got quite a gift," a regular customer said, sliding an extra $5 across the counter. "My granddaughter would love those story times." Throughout the morning, more customers mentioned the article. Some left larger tips than usual. Others asked about bringing their children to the next reading. June put up a proper sign-up sheet by the register. "Had to make it official," June explained. "Got 3 calls already from parents wanting to know the schedule." During his lunch break, Eli bounced in his seat as he ate his grilled cheese. "Can I help pick books for next time? Billy at school saw the picture and wants to come." Maya smoothed his hair, her heart full. "Of course you can help, sweetheart. What kind of stories should we read?" "Dragon ones," Eli declared. "And maybe that funny one about the cat who wears boots?" A woman in a crisp business suit approached their table, introducing herself as Sarah Chen. "I'm a family law attorney," she said quietly, handing Maya a card. "That was a lovely article. If you need legal assistance, I'd be happy to help pro bono." Maya tucked the card carefully into her pocket, hope fluttering in her chest. Later that afternoon, 3 women dropped off children's books at the diner. A local teacher sent an email offering to donate some beanbag chairs. Patch stopped by during the dinner rush, ordering coffee and watching the steady stream of well-wishers with careful eyes. When the crowd thinned, he gestured Maya over. "It's good press," he admitted, a rare smile crossing his weathered face. "Claire did right by you, but—" "I know," Maya said softly. "Dan won't like it." Patch nodded. He's got friends at the Chamber of Commerce, sponsors the Little League. People see what they want to see. He took a slow sip of coffee. Just be ready. Keep your phone handy. Stick to public places. The next morning, Maya found a small envelope with $30 in it. Anonymous donations from diner regulars who'd read the article. June helped her set up a proper reading corner in the back room, moving tables to make space for the donated chairs. Eli spent that evening organizing the new books by size, then color, then subject. "Can we do voices for the dragon story?" he asked. "I can be the baby dragon." "That's perfect," Maya said, watching him arrange and rearrange the books with such care. This was the most animated she'd seen him since they left, this sense of building something new. A local craft store sent over art supplies for the kids to use after reading time. The shelter's therapist told Maya that creative activities could help children process difficult emotions, something Maya had known instinctively from her librarian days. By Wednesday, the sign-up sheet had 12 names. June added a second sheet for the following weekend. "Might need to do 2 sessions," she said with a wink. "You're becoming quite the attraction." Maya felt it too, this small surge of purpose, of using her skills to create something positive. The attorney had already started reviewing her case. The donations, while modest, helped with Eli's school supplies. Most importantly, she saw her son laughing again, planning again, looking forward instead of over his shoulder. But she heeded Patch's warning, keeping her shelter routine strict and watching for familiar cars. The article's comments section was mostly supportive, but she noticed a few deleted posts, traces of pushback already starting to surface. Still, for these 48 hours, Maya allowed herself to feel the community's embrace. She watched Eli practice his dragon roar for story time, and for the first time in years, she felt like herself again. Not Dan's wife, not a victim, but Maya Walker, who knew how to make stories come alive for children who needed magic in their lives. Maya's hands shook as she read the thick legal envelope. Emergency custody motion. Her vision blurred at the words unfit mother and endangerment. The paperwork felt heavy, each page weighted with Dan's accusations. "He's saying I kidnapped Eli," she whispered to Tasha, "that I'm mentally unstable." Tasha's jaw tightened as she scanned the documents. "This is typical intimidation. Sarah Chen is already on it." She grabbed her phone, dialing the pro bono attorney. The shelter's landline rang, another call from Child Protective Services. Someone had reported Maya for neglect, claiming Eli wasn't attending school regularly. Maya's stomach churned as she explained again about the transfer paperwork, the new district, the safety protocols. Ruth called in tears. "Dan's friend cornered me at church," she said, her voice trembling. "Asked if I was harboring a kidnapper. I got so upset I had to leave service early, nearly fainted in the parking lot." "Mom, breathe," Maya urged, though her own chest felt tight. "Are you okay?" "Pastor Jim helped me to my car. I'm fine. Just scared for you both." Claire texted next. "Editor pulling the story. Pressure from advertisers. I'm so sorry." The diner's morning rush brought whispers. Regular customers who'd been friendly now avoided eye contact. A woman pulled her child away from Eli during lunch. "Heard she's not right in the head," someone muttered by the coffee station. "Always seemed quiet. You never know." June defended Maya fiercely, but the damage spread like ink in water. The reading circle sign-up sheet disappeared, replaced by cancellations. Maya's hands trembled as she served plates. Every door chime made her jump. She kept Eli close, watching windows, scanning faces. The memories surfaced without warning. Dan's late-night rages, the carefully crafted public smile, how he'd slowly isolated her from friends. "I've got eyes on the street," Patch assured her that afternoon. chapters watching the shelter exits. But his face was grim as he showed her a note left at the gate. Stop protecting liars. Sarah Chen called with strategy. Documented evidence, witness statements, counter motions. We'll fight this, she promised, but it'll get worse before it gets better. Tasha helped Maya document everything. Screenshots of deleted comments, dates of complaints, names of officials Dan had contacted. The shelter's security camera caught someone watching the building at night. Classic escalation, Tasha explained. He's lost direct control, so he's using systems against you, courts, social services, public opinion. But we've seen this before. We know how to handle it. That evening, Eli crawled into Maya's shelter bed, clutching his stuffed rabbit. Billy's mom said he can't come to story time anymore, he whispered. Did I do something wrong? Maya held him close, fighting tears. No, sweet boy. You did nothing wrong. Sometimes grown-ups just get confused about what's true. But they'll understand eventually. She stroked his hair until he fell asleep. Then sat in the dim light, remembering how Dan would charm everyone. Teachers, neighbors, even her own family, while slowly crushing her spirit at home. Now he was doing it, again, but on a larger scale. Ruth called again the next morning, stronger this time. I'm meeting with Pastor Jim, she said. He remembers things about Dan from years ago. He's willing to make a statement. Patch brought coffee and sat with Maya during her break. Got some people looking into Dan's business dealings, he said quietly. There's always a paper trail, always someone who knows something. But the weight of it all pressed down, the legal forms multiplying on Sarah's desk, the growing whispers, the constant need to defend and explain. Maya felt the old, familiar fog creeping in, the one Dan had cultivated for years, the urge to doubt herself, to give in. Remember why you left, Tasha said firmly, seeing Maya's struggle. Remember what's true. That night, Maya held Eli's rabbit while he slept, touching the worn ear that had absorbed so many tears. She thought of the strength it took to pack that duffel in the dark, to drive away from everything familiar. She couldn't falter now, not when Eli's safety hung in the balance. Outside, Patch's motorcycle rumbled past on patrol, a reminder that she wasn't alone this time. But Dan's shadow stretched long, and tomorrow would bring more battles. Maya's heart sank when she saw the school's number flash on the shelter's landline. The principal's voice was carefully neutral. Mrs. Walker, there's been an incident. During recess, Eli shared some concerning information with a classmate. Maya closed her eyes, already knowing. Eli had been doing so well, keeping their family's private pain locked away, but children couldn't hold secrets forever. He told Tommy that his daddy threw a chair through the window once, the principal continued. Tommy told his parents at dinner. They're quite disturbed. By afternoon, whispers had turned to pointed stares. Tommy's mother pulled her son away when Eli approached at pickup time. Other parents huddled in clusters, their faces a mix of judgment and morbid curiosity. The child services worker arrived at 4 o'clock sharp. Ms. Peterson wore sensible shoes and carried a thick folder. Her questions were professional but probing. Does Eli often discuss violence at home? How many times did you witness property damage? Why didn't you report these incidents earlier? Maya's hands shook as she provided documentation. Photos, dates, the careful records Tasha had helped her compile. But Ms. Peterson's expression remained impassive. We'll need to schedule a formal evaluation, she said finally. Both you and Eli will need to attend. After she left, Maya sat in the shelter's common room, numb. Tasha brought her tea and a legal pad. Write everything down, she instructed. Every question, every answer. We'll need it for the attorney." The midnight call to Ruth came from desperation. Maya's voice cracked as she described the day's events. "They're turning it all around," she whispered, "making me look unstable for keeping quiet, then crazy for speaking up." "Then we stop being quiet," Ruth said firmly. "All of us. I've been thinking. I have photos from that Christmas 5 years ago when he shoved you into the tree. Remember how he blamed the cat? I kept those pictures." "Mom, I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm telling. I watched you suffer in silence once. Never again." The next morning, Patch's motorcycle chapter took up positions around the shelter. They worked in shifts, their presence both reassuring and concerning. What had they heard to warrant such vigilance? Maya noticed June hanging a new sign in the diner window. "This is a safe space." Some regular customers nodded approvingly. Others walked past with tight lips. The shelter's security system recorded 3 drive-bys that night, slow cars circling the block. Tasha documented each one. "Standard intimidation tactics," she explained. "They want you to feel watched." It worked. Maya jumped at shadows, checked locks repeatedly. Eli grew clingy, refusing to leave her side at the diner. The upcoming evaluation loomed like a storm cloud. "Remember," Sarah Chen advised during their hurried legal meeting, "they're looking for patterns. Document everything, every threat, every whisper campaign. Show them who's really creating an unsafe environment." Patch's leather-clad brothers stood guard outside the law office, their bikes a wall of chrome and steel. Inside, Maya's hands trembled as she signed affidavits. "Your boy did nothing wrong," Patch told her later, his voice gentle. "Truth needs telling, even when it hurts." That evening, June closed the diner early for a staff meeting. She faced her employees with fierce determination. "Some people are spreading lies," she announced, "but in this diner we stand by our own. Anyone has a problem with Maya or Eli, they can take their business elsewhere." The solidarity helped, but couldn't erase the weight of judgment. Maya felt it in every sideways glance, every sudden silence when she entered a room. The evaluation appointment card burned in her pocket like a brand. That night, Eli crawled into her bed again, his small body shaking. "Tommy's mom said I'm not supposed to talk about home stuff," he whispered. "But it really happened, Mama. The chair really broke the window." Maya held him close, her tears falling into his hair. "I know, baby. I know it did." 3 days crawled by like years. Maya sat at the shelter's kitchen table, surrounded by a spreading collection of papers and photographs. Each one told its own small story of pain. "Here's the hospital report from when you fell down the stairs," Tasha said, adding another sheet to the pile. Her voice was steady, professional. "And the police response logs from the neighbors' noise complaints." Maya's hands trembled as she sorted through dates and times. "I kept telling myself it wasn't that bad," she whispered, "that maybe I was overreacting." "That's what they want you to think," Tasha replied, her pen scratching across her notepad. "But numbers don't lie. 6 police calls in 2 years, 3 ER visits, property damage reports." Sarah Chen, the pro bono attorney, spread more documents across the table. "We're filing the counter-motion today. His emergency custody claim doesn't have legs. It's just meant to scare you." Meanwhile, across town, Patch was following a different kind of paper trail. He'd spent days making quiet phone calls, asking careful questions in the right places. The name Marco Delgado kept coming up. Dan's former business partner who'd left town 3 years ago under a cloud of rumors. Patch found Marco working at an auto parts store 2 counties over. The man was hesitant at first, eyes darting toward the exit when Patch walked in. "I know what happened with Dan," Patch said softly. "I'm here because someone else needs help." They met later at a quiet diner off the highway. Marco's hands shook as he pulled out his phone. "I saved everything," he said. "Didn't know why at the time. Maybe I knew somebody would need it someday." He played the voicemail. Dan's voice filled the space between them, cold with rage, threatening Marco's family if he went public about missing inventory and doctored books. "He made everyone think I was stealing," Marco said. "Turned the whole business community against me. My kids couldn't even show their faces at school." Patch nodded. Maya's boy is going through something similar now. Marco's face hardened. "I've got receipts too. Proof of what he did. Will that help? With your testimony, it could change everything." Back at the shelter that night, Maya sorted through the growing stack of evidence. Medical records, police reports, photos of broken furniture and walls, her own careful diary of dates and incidents. "Marco's testimony is the missing piece," Patch explained. "Shows a pattern going back years. Dan can't claim this is just about custody anymore." Tasha helped organize everything into clear chronological order. "The judge needs to see the whole picture," she said. "Not just what happened to you and Eli, but how Dan operates, how he uses his influence to isolate people." Maya touched the papers gently, as if they might crumble. "All this time," she murmured, "all these little pieces of proof I never thought would matter." "They matter," Sarah assured her, sealing another envelope. "Every single one of them matters." Through the window, Maya could see Patch's motorcycle gleaming under the streetlight. He'd brought Marco's evidence straight to Sarah, then stationed himself outside like a sentinel. Inside, the shelter hummed with quiet purpose as they prepared the final documents. Other residents helped sort papers, make copies, double-check dates. Even Eli pitched in, carefully stacking papers with his small hands. "Remember what you told me about being brave?" he asked Maya suddenly. She pulled him close. "Yes, baby." "Well, you're being really brave now, Mama, and you're not alone anymore." Maya looked around the room, at Tasha's determined face, Sarah's careful hands, the other women's encouraging smiles. She thought of Marco, finding his voice again after years of silence, of Patch, quietly building bridges between all these scattered pieces of truth. The diner buzzed with quiet determination. June wiped down the counter for the 10th time that morning, her phone pressed to her ear. "Yes, that's right. Whatever you can spare for the bond fund. Maya's one of our own now." Behind her, the donation jar filled steadily with bills and change. Regular customers dropped in extra tips, while others wrote checks with encouraging notes. The community's response brought tears to June's eyes. At the shelter, Tasha sat with Maya at the kitchen table, reviewing statement cards. "Remember, stick to the facts," she coached. "Deep breaths between sentences, you've got this." Maya's hands trembled as she practiced. On February 10th, Daniel threw a chair through the living room window. "The police report shows—" "Good," Tasha nodded. "Keep your voice steady. Look at the judge, not Dan." Across town in the church hall, Ruth paced before a row of empty pews. Her voice grew stronger with each repetition. "I witnessed Daniel's controlling behavior at family gatherings. He isolated Maya from friends and family. I regret not speaking up sooner." Claire sat in her small office, surrounded by documentation. Her editor had approved a follow-up piece, pending verification of every detail. She cross-referenced dates, photographed receipts, and recorded interviews with 3 former employees from Dan's business. "The pattern is clear," she murmured, typing rapidly. "Financial manipulation, social isolation, public charm, masking private abuse." In the shelter's common room, Patch sat with Eli, working on a model airplane kit. "You know what's really brave?" he asked, helping Eli align a wing. What? Telling the truth even when it's scary, like you did about what you saw at home. Eli's small hands stilled on the plastic pieces. Dad said we shouldn't tell family secrets. Some secrets hurt people, Patch explained gently. Those are the kind we need to tell to keep everyone safe. That evening, they gathered at the shelter for a strategy meeting. Maya sat between Ruth and Tasha, while June passed out coffee. Claire reviewed her notes in the corner, and Patch kept watch by the door. The bond money's almost there, June reported. Community really came through. Tasha spread out a timeline on the table. We've got 5 witness statements, plus Marco's evidence. Medical records are certified. Police reports authenticated. Transportation's arranged for court day, Patch added. My brothers will escort Maya and Eli. Others will bring witnesses through different routes. Ruth reached for Maya's hand. We're all here for you, sweetheart. Every step of the way. Maya looked around the room at these people who'd become her chosen family. Their faces showed determination, love, and an unshakable resolve to stand with her. Thank you, she whispered. All of you. The meeting continued into the night, fine-tuning details. Claire confirmed fact-checking procedures. June coordinated meal deliveries for court day. Tasha reviewed security protocols. Through it all, Eli slept peacefully on the couch, his model airplane clutched in one hand. The sight of him gave everyone renewed purpose. This wasn't just about justice, but about a child's future. As they prepared to leave, Patch paused by Maya. Remember what I told you that first night at the rest stop? Maya nodded. You said I was safe now. Still true, he said softly. Now more than ever. Maya's hands shook as she smoothed her borrowed blue suit jacket. The municipal courthouse loomed ahead, all red brick and stern columns. Inside, the polished wooden benches of Courtroom 3 gleamed under fluorescent lights. Remember to breathe, Tasha whispered, guiding Maya to their seats beside the pro bono attorney, Sarah Chen. Dan sat across the aisle in an expensive charcoal suit, his lawyer leaning close to whisper strategies. He caught Maya's eye and gave that familiar smile, the public one that never reached his eyes. The gallery filled quietly. Ruth slipped into a bench near the front, clutching her purse. Behind her, a row of leather-clad figures filed in silently, Patch and his brothers, their presence solid and reassuring. June arrived with Claire, who carried a slim reporter's notebook. All rise, the bailiff called. Judge Patricia Martinez entered, her silver-streaked hair pulled back severely. Dan's lawyer went first, painting Maya as unstable and unreliable. Your Honor, my client is a respected business owner. Mrs. Walker abandoned their home without warning, disrupting their son's education and routine. Sarah Chen rose calmly. Your Honor, we have documentation of a sustained pattern of abuse and control. She gestured to Marco, waiting in the witness box. Mr. Rodriguez will testify to Mr. Walker's history of threatening behavior. Marco's hands trembled slightly as he held up his phone. The saved voice message crackled through the courtroom speakers. Dan's voice, slurred with rage, threatening to destroy Marco's reputation and business if he spoke about their disputed contracts. The timestamp and forensic authentication are included in evidence, Sarah noted, passing bank statements to the judge. These records show Mr. Walker's pattern of financial manipulation against both Mr. Rodriguez and Mrs. Walker. Maya watched Dan's jaw clench, that familiar tension that usually preceded something breaking. But here, surrounded by witnesses, he could only sit rigid in his chair. Claire scribbled rapidly in her notebook, documenting every detail. The evidence she'd helped verify would support her follow-up article, showing the truth behind Dan's carefully maintained facade. Judge Martinez reviewed the documents carefully, her expression neutral. "Mr. Walker," she said finally, "these records show a concerning pattern of behavior." Dan's lawyer attempted to object, but the judge held up her hand. "The court finds sufficient evidence to grant a temporary protective order. Mr. Walker will maintain a distance of 500 feet from Mrs. Walker and their son Eli. Furthermore, the emergency custody petition is dismissed." Maya's breath caught. Sarah squeezed her hand under the table. "Mr. Walker will attend court-mandated anger management sessions," the judge continued. "We will reassess in 90 days. Mrs. Walker retains primary custody during this period." The gavel struck with finality. Maya sat frozen until Tasha touched her arm gently. "It's over for now. Let's get you out of here." In the marble hallway, the tension finally broke. Maya's legs gave out, and she sagged against the wall. Ruth was there immediately, gathering her daughter close. "My brave girl," Ruth whispered, stroking Maya's hair like she had when Maya was small. "I'm so proud of you." Patch stood nearby, his solid presence keeping others at a respectful distance, while Maya cried. When she finally looked up, wiping her eyes, he offered a clean bandana from his pocket. "Told you we'd see it through," he said quietly. Maya nodded, unable to speak. For the first time in years, she felt truly safe, surrounded by people who had chosen to believe and protect her, who had helped her find her voice and her strength. Through the courthouse windows, afternoon sunlight streamed in, warming the marble floors. Maya stood supported between her mother and her newfound family, finally free to breathe. Maya watched sunlight filter through the diner's windows, casting warm patterns on the new safe zone patch that June had proudly mounted above the backroom door. 2 weeks had passed since the court victory, and small changes were blooming like spring flowers after a long winter. "And then the caterpillar became a beautiful butterfly," Maya read, her voice carrying across the diner's back room where 5 children sat cross-legged on cushions. Eli beamed from his spot in the front, no longer jumping at sudden noises. Claire's article had run in the local paper 3 days ago, carefully fact-checked and supported by court documents. Local Mother Creates safe reading space wasn't flashy, but it was honest. The piece had brought 3 new families to the reading circle. Through the window, Maya could see Patch working on his motorcycle, pretending not to be standing guard. He'd brought a box of children's books yesterday, gently used treasures from a chapter member's wife who taught elementary school. "Time for snacks," June called, bringing in a tray of milk and cookies. The children scrambled up eagerly, forming a polite line just as Ruth appeared with extra napkins. "Remember to say thank you," Ruth reminded them softly. She'd moved into Maya's small apartment temporarily, sleeping on the pull-out couch to help with Eli's school schedule. Her presence filled empty spaces Maya hadn't known were aching. Later that afternoon, Maya organized folders for their first official literacy group meeting. The diner's back room had transformed into a warm gathering space. Women from the shelter had started dropping by during quiet hours, sharing resources and phone numbers. "Got some more supplies," Patch said, appearing with a box of notebooks and pencils. Chapter took up a collection. Maya touched the fresh supplies gratefully. "Thank you. For everything." He shrugged, uncomfortable with direct gratitude. "Community looks after its own." Someone had spotted Dan at the grocery store yesterday, but he'd turned down another aisle immediately. His angry social media posts seemed hollow now, stripped of their power to wound. The protective order held firm, a shield between past and present. That evening, 15 people gathered for the first official literacy group meeting. Maya's hands shook slightly as she stood to welcome them, but Ruth's encouraging nod steadied her. "Books were my escape," Maya began. "Now they're helping us build something new." Eli proudly handed out cookies June had baked. Patch's chapter members quietly patrolled the parking lot, more guardian angels than intimidating bikers. Through the windows, Maya could see Claire taking notes for a follow-up piece about community healing. The meeting flowed naturally, women sharing stories and resources, children sprawled on the floor with picture books, Ruth helping a young mother fill out school forms. Maya moved between groups, finally comfortable in her role as facilitator rather than fugitive. "Mama, look!" Eli called, showing her a drawing he'd made. Stick figures of their new family, including Patch with his motorcycle and June with her cookie tray. Maya pinned it to the bulletin board, next to flyers for support groups and legal aid. 2 weeks ago, she couldn't have imagined this scene, her son laughing, her mother nearby, and a room full of people choosing to help rather than hurt. The sun was setting when the meeting ended, painting the diner in soft orange light. Maya watched through the window as families headed home, Patch's brothers ensuring everyone reached their cars safely. Ruth hummed while wiping down tables, and Eli dozed in a corner chair, surrounded by books. This wasn't the life Maya had planned, but somehow it had become exactly the life they needed. Day by day, page by page, they were writing their own story of healing. Maya stood at the diner's entrance, holding a handmade patch crafted from Ruth's old quilting supplies. 1 month had passed since that terrifying night of escape, yet here they were, building something beautiful from broken pieces. Pages and Patches read the new sign above the diner's backroom entrance. The name had come to her during a late-night conversation with Patch, when he'd mentioned how stories and safe spaces could stitch a community together. The informal non-profit had grown organically. Ruth coordinated a network of volunteers, her organizational skills perfectly suited to matching helpers with needs. Tasha's connections to social services meant they could quickly connect women to resources. And Patch, steady, quiet Patch, had mobilized his chapter into a protective force that moved through the shadows of dangerous nights, helping others find their way to safety. The back room hummed with purpose now. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with donated volumes. A corkboard displayed resource cards, emergency numbers, and children's artwork. The old coffee station had become a hub where women could quietly share information over steaming mugs. Maya touched the fresh paint on the wall where the new patch would go. Just yesterday, they'd helped another mother and child find shelter, the chapter providing escort while Ruth prepared a safe bed. The system worked because it was built on trust and understanding rather than bureaucracy. June appeared with a stepladder. "Need help hanging that?" "I've got it," Maya said, climbing up. The patch was simple, a book crossed with a motorcycle patch, surrounded by the words "Safe Zone." As she pinned it carefully above the door, she remembered her own first night of terror and salvation. The diner was quiet now, closed for regular business but glowing with warmth. Eli was home with Ruth, probably already asleep surrounded by his growing collection of books. He'd started writing his own stories lately, full of brave heroes on motorcycles who helped people find their way home. The bell above the door chimed softly. Maya turned to see Patch standing in the doorway, his presence solid and reassuring as always. He studied the patch with approval, then moved closer as she descended the ladder. "It's perfect," he said simply. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "I never thought we'd be here, building this." Patch's weathered face softened. Without a word, he stepped forward and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. A benediction, a promise, a moment of pure understanding between two souls who had found unexpected connection through helping others. The sound of motorcycles grew outside, his chapter gathering for their nightly patrol. Patch stepped back, his eyes holding hers for a moment longer before he turned to go. Maya watched through the window as he mounted his bike, the chapter falling into formation around him. The rumble of engines filled the night air, but it no longer made her flinch. Instead, the sound wrapped around her like a protective embrace, a lullaby of safety, a promise of shelter in the storm. "We're safe now," she whispered to the empty room, knowing Eli would understand when she told him tomorrow. The words rang true, settling into her bones with the weight of hard-won peace. The motorcycles faded into the distance, their thunder becoming a gentle guardian's purr in the growing dark. Maya stood in the doorway of the space they'd built, together, watching the taillights disappear around the corner, knowing they'd return tomorrow to continue their quiet work of protection and healing. Thank you for listening. Stories connect us in the most unexpected ways. If you felt that spark today, make sure you're subscribed. I share a new one daily, and the next might change your day.